I'm back. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to make another lovely little applique for whatever crochet projects you may have going on. Today it's this little frog. So this again is a design that I created myself, and it's very cute for sort of hems of scarves, or I get to put on a mug cozy, whatever you want to do with it. So let's get going. Right, so for this project, what you'll need is a 2.5mm crochet hook, like this. You need some fine green wool. It's okay if it's a little bit thicker than this, but this is quite nice for a tight stitch. You need some fine white wool and some fine black wool. Not very much of these, so if you've only got the ends of balls of yarn, that's absolutely fine. You'll also need a darning needle to pop it all together. There we go, so let's get started. So we're going to start with the body and the legs. As always, I'm going to attach the crochet pattern in the comments, in the description, video description. So if you want to follow along with that, that's absolutely fine. So we're going to start with the magic circle. So we're going to drape the yarn over the front of our fingers, wrap around the back, do a cross on the front, parallel lines on the back, and then hold into place like so. Then we're going to get our crochet hook. We hook underneath the front parallel line, we hook over the back, and as we pull through we twist it. So you can see just like that, got a nice twist. Then we've got this long elongated X shape, and we want to go into the top left of the X, and then I'm actually going to let it all drop so you can see what happens. Just here, if I grab hold very gently of this bit, all we need to do is pull that piece of yarn through that, and we've got our magic circle. So you don't need it hugely big, so we're just going to pull it tight. There we go. So now we're going to do 6 single crochets into our magic circle. So what we do is we go through the magic circle, we pick up from our working yarn and we pull back through. Then we've got 2 loops on the hook. We pick up from our working yarn and pull through both loops. So do that 5 more times. So through the magic circle, pick up, pull through, pick up and pull through both. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There we go. Now we want to connect it round. So if we pull that magic circle string quite tightly and find the first stitch that we did. So for me it would be, if we count back, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. This one just here, you can see I'm just sticking my crochet hook through it, like so, if it wants to focus. There we go. So then we just pick up from our working yarn and do a single crochet in that. So pick up from our working yarn and pull through that stitch, trying not to get the string from your magic circle caught in it. Then we've got 2, we pick up from our working yarn and go through both. Then we can pull that magic circle nice and tight, and it creates a very nice tight middle for your frog. So we want to do another single crochet in the same stitch. So we just go through the same stitch like so, pick up the working yarn, we've got 2, pick up the working yarn again and pull through both. Now we're going to do 2 single crochets in every stitch around, so overall that'll be 12 stitches, 12 single crochets, so I'll count for you. So in the next stitch, next little V shape, if you remember, we go through, we pick up, this is stitch number 3, and in the same one, stitch number 4. Then we move round for stitch number 5 and stitch number 6. Move round again, stitch number 7 and 8, round again for stitch number 9 and 10, then move around once more for stitches 11 and 12. Voila, I'm just going to pull on my working yarn slightly. So here we are, having gone around the circle once more. As you can see, we need to make it a lot bigger to make it the size of our frog. So we're going to go round again. If you find that the hole in the middle of your circle is getting a bit loose, just pull it tight again and that will close it up. So this time what we're going to do all the way around is 1 single crochet in the first stitch and then 2 single crochets in the next. Overall, as we go around, I'll do 18 stitches, but I'll take you through the first one quite close up. So our next little V shape is this one just here. So we want to go through that, pick up the yarn, pull back through, then pick up the yarn and go through both, and then we move around immediately after to our next little V shape. So this one here. If it's quite tight, you might have to wiggle in there, but that's absolutely fine. And we do stitch number 2 and stitch number 3 in there. So then we move round for stitch number 4. And move round again for stitch numbers 5 and 6 in the same stitch. Move round again for stitch number 7 and then 8 and 9 in the next one. Move round again for stitch 10. Move round again for 11 and 12 in the next stitch. Round again for 13, round again for 14, 15 in the same stitch. And finally, move round again for 16, and then in the same stitch here, move round for 17, 18. There we go. Ooh. As you can see, if your yarn splits like so, you just got to do a little maneuver to get it out. We're going to go round again because we want it to be, again, slightly bigger. So this time we're going to do 1 single crochet in 2 stitches, and then we're going to do 2 single crochets in 1 stitch. That may sound complicated, but I'll take you through slowly the first one. Overall, it's going to be 24 stitches in the round, so if you want to go ahead and count 24, that's absolutely fine. So in our next little V shape here, we go through, we just do 1 single crochet in that. Then we move directly to the next one and do 1 single crochet in that one as well. Then we move around again to the next one and do 2 single crochets. So that's going to be stitch numbers 3. Ooh, there we go. And 4. There we are. Then we move around again for stitch number 5 into the next V shape. Move around again for stitch number 6 into the next V shape. And then move around again for stitches 7 and 8 into the next V shape. There we go. Move around again for stitch number 9 in the next. Stitch number 10 in the next, and stitches 11 and 12 in the next. So There we go. And we move on for stitch 13, move on for 14, move on for 15 and 16 into the next. Go, move on for 17, move on for 18, and move on for 19 and 20 into the next. Then move on for 21, move on for 22, and then finally move on for 23 and 24, both in the next stitch. There we go. So what we want to do, just to complete that circle, so we can start with the left leg straight out of the boat, is we don't pick up, we go into the next stitch around in the circle, and we actually just do a slip stitch through that. So we pull the working yarn through, and instead of just doing a normal single crochet, we just keep pulling that same working yarn through the stitch on the hook. So that just completes the circle like so. And then we want to start working outwards for the legs. So we want to start with just doing a single chain. So you pick up like this and chain outwards. Then we want to keep working around and do 5 single crochets as if you were about to start working another round on the circle, but we are going to turn the work after that. I'll tell you what we do when we get to that. So in our next stitch, we do a single crochet. Voila. And then we do 4 more in each of the next stitches. Don't worry about doing more than 1 in any of the stitches. We just do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. So following that, we want to do 1 more chain. So just picking up and taking through the loop on our hook and turn the work. I tend to, when I turn my work, like to twist my needle around as well, just because I can see it a bit better. It's not as twisty on the hook, as you can see. And then we don't want to single crochet into the next stitch, the one that's closest to the hook, as you can see. We want to skip that, and we want to do a single crochet into the following stitch here. So pick up, bring through the stitch, pick up again, and bring through, and then single crochet into the next 3 stitches. So you may have to turn the work slightly just to see the V shapes, but 1, 2, 3. There we go. So we want to, then we want to create this little sort of curved bit, as you can see, that connects to the body. We don't want it to be sort of an outward rectangle. So what we're going to do is a couple of slip stitches. So we do a slip stitch in the next actual leg stitch here. So we go as if we were going to do a single crochet and then pull it through that loop on the hook. And then we actually find the connecting body stitch. So this one just here, can everyone see? There we go. And do another slip stitch in there. There we go. This is just going to bring the leg round so it doesn't go as rectangular as it does on this end. So what we want to do then is chain 1 and turn the work. Don't worry about this making it rectangular. You'll find that from your slip stitches, it actually works really well. So chain 1, turn the work, and turn around again. So this time what we want to do is skip the first 2 stitches that are close to the hook. See if I can make it focus. There we go. So you can see the first one there, and the next one following on. We don't want to work into either of those stitches, but we do want to do a slip stitch into the next. So the 3rd stitch from the hook, we do another slip stitch into that. And this is just going to confirm that really nice curved shape coming away from the body. Then in the next 4 stitches, we want to do a normal single crochet. There we go. And voila. So this is starting to get that nice shape of the leg coming down, but we need to do that foot. So in order to do that, it's really, really simple. All we need to do is chain 1 more and turn the work. Twist your needle if you need to. In the second stitch from the hook, we do a single crochet. And then in the following stitch, we do another single crochet as well. Then we chain 1 again, so pick up and pull through, turn our work once more, and in the second stitch from the hook once more, you see there's 3 stitches, you want to skip the first, we do a single crochet, and then we do a final single crochet in that next stitch. So you should end up with what looks like a little foot coming off the bottom. You see that? Fabulous. So to tie off, we're gonna just go to do a chain stitch and pull tightly, leaving a little bit of a tail. If you want to leave a longer tail for sewing it on to something, that's absolutely fine, but it's not really necessary for any embroidery detail. So if we leave a little bit of a tail, and then I'm going to chop that off and just show you how to start your second leg. So currently we have this lovely little one-legged frog, as you can see. In order to make the other leg, we're just going to have to count round the top stitches. So if you can see just here, our first little stitch following the leg is this little guy here. See if I can stick my hook through it so you can see for sure. There you go. So that's our first stitch following the top of the leg. What we need to do is, counting this one, we count 8 stitches round from the top. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You can see like that. I'll show you once more, just so you definitely see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this is our 8th stitch, and in the following stitch from that, we want to stick our crochet hook through. This is to connect the green yarn again to the top of this leg. So in order to connect the green yarn, it is really simple. You just loop a piece of green yarn like so. You hook it round your crochet hook and you just pull that through like so. So what we're going to do here is, just like the other leg, we chain 1, and we need to be working in the opposite direction. So I'm going to turn the work, as you can see. If you need to, pull tightly on that end. That just makes the stitch nice and tight so it won't disappear from you and potentially pull out. So into the next 5 stitches from that, starting with the second stitch from the hook. So this one just here. You want to do single crochets. So that's 1 single crochet, as you can see. I'm just moving on just to get out the messy bit. So keep doing that. So you do the second stitch, picking up and pulling through, and picking up and pulling through both loops on the hook. Then you do that 3 more times. Want to go through both of those sides of the V, so make sure that you are. 2 and ooh, I don't think I've gone through both sides there, so this is a good example. Just make sure, there we go, you see? Fabulous. So once you've got to this point, you chain 1 and turn your work. Just need to get a little bit more green yarn. Then in the second stitch from the hook, as you can see here, we do a single crochet. And then do 3 more single crochets. 1, 2, 3. Then in the next stitch, as you can see, we want to do a slip stitch. So go to do a single crochet and then just keep pulling that stitch all the way through. Then we want to do a slip stitch in the stitch that we originally went into on our body. So just stick the crochet hook through that and pull all the way through. Fabulous. Then we chain 1 and turn the work, pulling nice and tight. And then in the third stitch from the hook, as you can see here, we go in that one and do 1 more slip stitch. That's just to confirm that nice curve on the top of the leg. I've pulled quite tightly here, so I'm gonna wiggle to get through. There we go. And in the next 4 stitches, we do regular single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. Then we chain 1 for our little foot, turn the work, and in the second stitch from our crochet hook, we do a single crochet. And we do 1 more single crochet in the following stitch. And then to finish that off, we do 1 more chain, and then we want to single crochet into both of those stitches once more. So we skip the first stitch from the hook and we do a single crochet into the following 2 stitches. So again, we're going to tie off. I don't know if you can hear my cat in the background. He's begging for food. It's far too early for food. We tie off this one yet again. Again, you don't need to leave a huge tail. So if you want to, again, for sewing onto something, then feel free. But all you need is just pulling that tight, grabbing our scissors and cutting. There we go. So this is our little body. So in order to do our head, it's going to be pretty simple. We're just working back and forth like normal crochet, except we are increasing slightly and then decreasing slightly. So you want to start with your normal slip knot. So go to tie a knot. This is in case you don't know how to do it. And then let the long end of the working yarn come through that middle knot. And you've got a lovely slip knot. So stick your crochet hook through that and we're going to chain 3. So pick up your working yarn like so, pull through 1, 2, 3. And now you can see we're going to work back on ourselves. For the first working back on ourselves, we don't need to go through the entire V, we just need to go through the back bump. So just one of the strings. What we want to do is skip that first stitch that's right next to the hook and then do 2 single crochets into the next. So going through that stitch, picking up, pulling back through, and then having 2, picking up and pulling through both. I'm just going to do that one more time in the same stitch. Then we move on to the next stitch and do 1. So this increases our stitches to 3 across. There we go. So we're just going to zhuzh that up a bit and voila. So then again, we want to keep increasing. So we chain 1, so you can see, and we turn the work. We skip the first stitch. Then we do 1 single crochet into the next. 2 single crochets into the next, this time going through both sides of the V as opposed to just one like we did on the previous row. So we do 2 single crochets into this one. And then we do 1 single crochet into the last one in the row. Ooh, making sure to go through both sides of the V. Sometimes you just need to wiggle it slightly to make sure. Ooh, lost it all then. There we go. That's the nice thing about crochet, is if you drop your stitch, it's very easy to pick back up again. So again, we want to keep working out. Now we've got 4 stitches across. So we do another chain stitch, turn the work. From the second stitch from the hook, we want to do 1 single crochet. Then we do 2 single crochets in the following stitch. So that's 1, 2. Then we do 1 single crochet in each of the next stitches. So that's 1 in that one and 1 in the next one. There we go. Now we should have 5 stitches across. You see where we're going with this? So we chain 1 more out, we turn the work, and we chain, we do a single crochet into the second stitch from the hook. We do 1 single crochet into the following stitch. Then we do 2 single crochets into the middle stitch here. 1, 2. Then we do 1 single crochet into each of the next stitches. There we go. And then to just give this head a bit of body, as it were, we're going to just do a solid line across, solid line of single crochets. So we chain 1 out, and then starting with the second stitch from the hook, we just do a single crochet into every single stitch. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now we're going to start decreasing on the other side. So in order to do this, what we need to do is start skipping stitches. So we chain 1 to move out to our next row. Again, in the second stitch from the hook, we just do a single crochet like so. We do a single crochet in the next. Then we actually want to skip this next stitch. So that just involves literally just moving past it. We go straight on to the next for our single crochet. It's as easy as that. And then we do single crochets in the next 2. So that should take us back down to 5 stitches across again. I'm just going to pull on my yarn. Okay. We do a chain to come out. We turn our work. Skip the first stitch and do a single crochet in the next 2 stitches. Skip this middle stitch here, just move straight across it and do a single crochet in the next 2 stitches. Then we chain 1 again and turn the work. Skipping the first stitch from the hook, we do a single crochet in the next. Skip the following stitch, move across that to the next, and we do a single crochet in the next 2. This should, by this point, end up with 3 stitches across, like so. And we want to get down to 2, so we chain 1 more, turn the work, and in the second stitch from the hook, we do a single crochet, we skip the middle stitch, and we do one more single crochet in the final stitch. So here's the basic model for our head. We just want to make it a bit neater because obviously we've been increasing and decreasing, so it might have a little bumpiness in various places. So in order to do that, we literally just need to go around the entire work with single crochets. So it's as easy as that. We chain one to come outwards slightly, and then just finding whatever spaces that you can around the work, you just pop that in, pick up the yarn and come through, pick up the yarn and come through both. So just doing that all the way around. So if you can find like little V shapes like this, that's perfect. But if not, as long as it's neat and it's on the edge, it's absolutely fine wherever you find the places to stick the crochet hook through. And when you get back round to the end here, just find a sort of neat place to stop around where you started the single crochets all the way around, and find that connecting single crochet stitch here and just do a slip stitch into it. If you find your work's curling slightly, that's absolutely fine. As we sew it to the body, it will uncurl quite nicely. So as we've done our slip stitch through, we just pull tightly. And since I've not got a very long end here and I want to create enough yarn tail to sew the head onto my body, I'm going to pull it a little bit longer and just cut that off there. That means I've got enough tail to sew that onto the body. So here we go. We've got a head, we've got a body. Moving on to the eyes. So now that we're done with the main body of our frog, we can get rid of the green yarn and bring in our white yarn and our black yarn. I'll leave the black to the side just for now. We're going to work with the white yarn for the big, so is it the iris of the eye? The white bit. So what we want to do is start with a magic circle, just like we did the centre of our frog. So we drape over the front, do a cross on the front, parallel on the back. We pick up our crochet hook, we go under the first, hook around the second and twist. Sometimes the cross can go a little bit haywire, but as long as you can get in that top left corner. And if you're like me and have been working with really tight crochet recently, it helps just drop the whole thing off your hand and just don't let any of that yarn get lost. So we're going to pull that nice and tight, and I think that is a perfect length tail to sew our eyes onto our body actually. So I've got a good start. So what we want to do is do just like we did at the beginning of our frog's body. We do 6 single crochets into the magic circle. So that's going into the magic circle, picking up and bringing through, picking up again and taking through both. So do that 5 more times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you're like me and have quite a flaky yarn, just make sure you're pulling all of those strands through, just because otherwise it will make it a bit more difficult when we're going back round to find your V-shapes, to find your stitches. So as you can see, I've just pulled that magic circle nice and tight, and I'm going to find my first V-shape, my first stitch, and stick my crochet hook through it. Through both sides, please. There we go. And again, exactly like we did at the beginning of the body of our frog, we do 2 single crochets into every stitch around. So 12 single crochets all together. So that's number 1, number 2 into the same stitch, move round for 3, and 4 into the same stitch. Move round for 5 and 6 into the same stitch. If you get confused like I just have done, you just count your stitches. I still haven't done 6 into that stitch. There we go. Move round for 7 and 8 into the same stitch. Move round for 9 and 10 into the same stitch, and then finally move round for 11 and 12 into the same stitch. Now just to finish off that circle, that eye circle, what we're going to do is pull the magic circle nice and tight, like so. And we find the next little V shape in our circle, go through that and just do a slip stitch into it like so. Now pull that tight. If you're like me and have a really long beginning to your magic circle, you don't need to leave a huge tail, but if you don't, leave a longer tail for sewing the eye onto the body. Pull nice and tight to make sure that that doesn't come loose, and chop off your excess. There we go. So what we're actually going to do to make sure that we don't get confused is just tie these ends together behind. So that involves pulling the magic circle nice and tight and just tie these 2 ends together on the back of the eye. I tend to do a double knot or a triple knot just to make sure it's nice and tight. And this just keeps those ends nice and out of the way, because what you can do is chop off the shorter end. Okay, I could actually chop that a bit shorter, but should be fine. So I'm just going to pop that to the side for now and move on to our black yarn. So this is really, really simple. All we need to do is create that pupil, so the really tiny bit in the middle. All we do is create another magic circle. So just like before, under the front one, pick up the back one, twist, pick up that top X and pull through. I'll show you what it's like if you do it without dropping the whole thing. It's quite fiddly. You just pull through like so. There we go. And pull nice and tight. So then literally all you need to do for this is 4 single crochets into the magic circle and then a slip stitch connect. So I'll start that really simply. We do 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's your eye basically. Pulling that magic circle nice and tight, you find your first little black stitch. Can you see it? There we go. And you stick your crochet hook through it. And then just pick up your working yarn and pull all the way through both that first black stitch and the stitch you've already got on your hook. And then you want to pull that magic circle nice and tight and do a quick tie off. There we go. So I've got a really long bit on the end again from my magic circle, so I'm not going to leave a huge long chain on the back, sorry, tail on the back. So I'm just going to chop that off like so, and I'll show you how to attach this to the white section of your eye. So what I tend to do first, using my darning needle, which I handily have right here, is I get that short bit, so whichever bit is your shorter bit, and I thread that onto the darning needle. This is completely optional. If you have a preferred way of sewing things onto your work, then please do this. I just find this really useful for tying off at the end, because then you don't need to figure out some sort of sewing knot at the end to tie on. I'm going to place it roughly in the middle of your eye. If you want it to be slightly askew because you think it's cute or whatever, that's absolutely fine. I haven't mastered frogs looking in certain directions yet. They always tend to go quite cross-eyed, which is cute in its own way. So we literally just pull that through the white section of the eye like that. And then we leave it, because we move on to our longer bit of black yarn and thread that onto our darning needle. There we go. And we sew this on like so. So that's just working, holding that shorter bit to the side. This is just working in a normal stitch, so you just want to stitch him on like so. Working all the way around the edge of that black circle, making him nice and tight. And would you look at this, I've skipped ahead to where I actually have 2 eyes now. You do the exact same thing for the second eye. I'm just going to move this bit of fluff off my black yarn and fix that black yarn really tightly onto the front of the white. So if you need to look back on the video, that's absolutely fine, because that will help you to do the second eye. But like I say, it's done the exact same way. So once that's really tight on the eye like so, you just turn it over, moving the white yarn out of the way. You just want to tie together these 2 pieces of black yarn, and we chop off those loose bits. That's what you get for using kitchen scissors in sewing. So as you can see, the frog's eyes can be a little bit haywire. Sometimes they look a little bit different, but it's quite cute. It's got a little uniqueness to it. Now we've done all of our different bits. Try not to throw your bits around. We're going to move them together and sew them all together like so. So what we're going to do here is we're actually going to use all of these long strings on the end of the yarn to sew it all together, to tie it up, as it were. And this is really useful because it means that you sort of have that yarn ready to go, and you don't need to cut any more. So it will look a lot less messy, I promise. What we need to do here is thread this long piece of green yarn that we have on the head onto our darning needle. I'm going to use this to sew our head onto our body. In order to sew the head onto the body, you can put it directly on like so. I like to do a little bit of overlap to make him like a squat little froggy. You may need to come through the front of the head just once to make sure that green yarn is close to where it needs to be. So you want to follow the edges of the stitches that you've done so you don't notice a huge join line. So, you know, as you can see, when I come through here, I can really easily follow the edges of that stitch. So I'll just work along that, put the yarn in there, and it just looks like part of the stitch. You never notice it's there. So just do things like this. Make sure you're definitely going through the body on the back. And stitch away like so. So we'll just leave that for now. I'll show you how to tie off all those ends at the end, I promise. We'll just leave all of those ends facing downwards for now because we just need to attach those eyes onto the top. So we're going to get the eye with the longest white piece of yarn. If it helps to twist that yarn slightly before threading it onto the darning needle, it sort of twists all of those ends together. There we go. So the eyes are a little bit difficult because you have to sort of sew one into place and then sew the other and do a couple of stitches to keep them together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with this one, just going through the top of the head like so. Like this. We're going to do a couple of stitches across the bottom of the eye, like so. Again, following the lines of those stitches. Sometimes a little wobbly because it's so small, but that's okay. There we go. And then we add the other eye. I'd say at this point you want to sew them together slightly. So come up through the eye you've already sewn on and just sew across to the eye that hasn't been sewn on yet. Do a couple of stitches across here. You shouldn't be able to see them massively because it is white yarn, so that's useful. And just make sure that it's all attached to both each other and the head. And in addition to that, I like to give him a cheeky little smile. So once the eyes are on, like so, my eyes have gone a bit skew-whiff, but that's absolutely fine. I'm going to use the same white yarn. If you've got enough, do the same. If not, you can maybe use the other tail, or you can cut some new yarn, and that's absolutely fine. So just come through the front of the head like so, and start with a little line across this way. So that's going to give him the sort of side smile like this. You can give him a full smile if you want. You can give him no smile. You can give him a frowny face. And you probably have to do some eyebrows, but that's absolutely fine. I'm going to getting everything trapped in the back. There we go. Then you come through the middle of that horizontal piece of yarn like so. And we also want to do a running stitch along to give him that cheeky grin. So that involves coming through the back like so and then joining your stitch in the back. There we go. Got a little bit of fluff on that, but that's absolutely fine. And here we are. Here is our cheeky little frog with a happy grin. There we go. So in order to get all of these sort of loose bits on the back to go away, all you need to do is turn it over and find areas where they can tie together. Most of the time it's quite easy. You should have an even number. So if you need to, however, oops, see what I mean about yarn splitting. If you need to, just take your darning needle like so. Don't stitch all the way through the applique because you'll see it on the front side, but just go into some of those back stitches just slightly, as you can see me doing, like so. Okay. And pull that through, and that just gets the loose bit of yarn closer to another piece of yarn that you can tie it to. Also just make sure that those threads are super secure so that it doesn't come apart. And here we are with our final little tie off on the back. Make this nice and tight so our magic circle doesn't loosen up which is what this tail is attached to. And cut those nasty bits off. As you can see from the back, it doesn't look particularly pretty, but that's absolutely fine. With appliques, you don't need to think about how they look from all angles, because it's just the front that you care about, because that's the part that you see when it's attached to something else. So I think this frog is a little more dopey than this frog, but that's absolutely fine. Everyone's got their unique personalities. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you guys have any questions, as ever, pop it in the comments and I'll be happy to answer. And hopefully I'll come up with another tutorial for you soon.